Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. This is Lori Smith on Blog Talk Radio. Good evening. It is 9:30 p.m. here in Calgary, Alberta. It is Monday night, November the 29th. This is Child Abuse Prevention and Human Rights Abuse Prevention is Up to Us, 30-minute live internet streaming radio broadcast from blogtalkradio.com. And glad to be here. And, I wanted to talk tonight about a topic that I found from SafeChild, and that is www.safechild.org and /program2.htm. And this is talking about prevention of sexual abuse, Coalition for Children, prevention of sexual abuse, and also there's another article on the same website, prevention of emotional abuse. I just want to take a look at this. There's videos on here. I hope everybody will go check this website out. There's all kinds of great information on here. There's a Safe Child program. There's research, Take a Stand, prevention of bullying. There's videos and all kinds of links on here. Just great information. I hope everybody will go check it out. And so that's what I want to talk about tonight. So, I'm not a counselor, not a therapist. I don't hold any certificates in those areas. I'm just a private citizen paying to do my own blog talk shows. And, just to bring out this information to people, I'm a survivor, and I just know, so many people who have been abused as children, right? And I'm also the Canada Regional Director for Dreamcatchers for Abused Children. And we stand up and we're speaking out against abuse, raising awareness, raising awareness to the issues of abuse, and also promoting education and trying to get the word out, to people that, we all need to do our part to stop and prevent child abuse, right? Child abuse is so incredibly wrong, and, as a survivor myself, there's lots of people that might think, oh, well, you seem okay, you survived it, you survived, you're alive, you made it, and that's all well and good. I did survive. I wasn't killed at the hands of my parents and caregivers, but a little piece of me was killed every single day by them. You know what I mean? And a sibling in the family, and so that's just the whole issue. Abuse is very, very damaging, very, very harmful. If it doesn't kill the child physically, and put them in a body bag in a grave somewhere, then it will kill them little piece by little piece for the rest of their lives until they get help, until they realize and reach out and feel worthy enough and feel okay enough about the whole thing to get help, right, or to reach out in some way. So I'm very lucky to be here, and, I feel very privileged to be here and to be a voice to speak out against child abuse and to be a voice for survivors as well, and, to be hopefully part of this really this proactive change that needs to happen within the system, because children are still dying. We're still losing so many children every day to child abuse. They're killed at the hands of their parents and caregivers. Bad enough, children are dying, from diseases and these horrible things that happen to children. But, when you think about parents killing their babies and killing their children, it's preventable. It's 100% preventable if the parent or whoever it is that gets a hold of this child would stop what they're doing and get some help and get the child some help. So this is the issue. I will continue to speak out about this as long as I live, until my last dying breath on this planet. That is what I'll be doing. So, it's very important to me to stop child abuse. I survived. That's great. It left me with emotional scars that, will probably be with me forever, and all kinds of problems, you know what I mean? So, it's not something that we can just take lightly and minimize and say, oh, well, it's no big deal. You survived it. Oh, you're tough. You can take it, It's very, very damaging. It affects people in every way, and adult survivors quite often have so many issues, that they have to deal with and learn to walk through and learn to manage. And so I say, let's stop child abuse so that no other child has to go through this. You know what I mean? No child should live in fear. No child should live in fear that their parents are going to kill them, that one of their parents or someone in the family is going to come in and sexually molest them or rape them, or beat on them or throw them out of the house, call them names. I don't care. I don't mind speaking out against this. And, it doesn't bother me to say, let's stop child abuse. It bothers me that people don't care. That's what bothers me. And it bothers me that people abuse their children. That's what really bothers me. The fact that people are abusing their children, that offends me. right? So I will continue to speak out about this for as long as I live. And I don't mind doing it. I have nothing better to do with my time that could be more valuable to me and more meaningful to me than to speak out on behalf of my inner child who was extremely wounded and is still very much a part of me. So that's the whole issue. It's so important that we all do what we can, within our own abilities to find out what's going to work. We got to change this. And it's going to take whole think tanks. It's going to take people sitting down and talking about this stuff and finding out what's going to work so we can stop child abuse, because I believe that it can be stopped. And the reason why I do is because it's 100% preventable. Unlike some of this other stuff like natural disasters that, we just can't have no control over, hurricanes killing babies left and right in these different countries, and it's like, floods, kill children every day. Yet parents kill children every day too, and so do sick individuals who get a hold of children and use them for whatever they're using them for and kill them. They kill children too, and that's preventable. See, this other stuff is you just wonder about that, but typhoons and hurricanes and tornadoes and floods and natural disasters, it's horrible. Heat and drought and lots of children dying in Africa all the time, and it's just horrible. You think about that, it breaks my heart. But what really breaks my heart is these parents who abuse and kill their children and then sit there and look so stupid on the video camera in the courtrooms with those dumb looks on their face, like, oh, what did I do? Did I do something wrong? Or they get busted for raping a child or, sexually abusing a child, or more than one, which is usually the case. And or parents who get busted for completely abusing their children in every way, physically burning them, stabbing them, beating on them, and they sit in these courtrooms, and these parents, they just look so absolutely stupid sitting there with those dumb looks on their face. And it just makes me angry because I'm a survivor, and it really bothers me because people have the choice to not abuse. They don't have to do that to their children. No one has to abuse a child. It is something that they choose to do. And so that's why I feel that, child abuse is definitely 100% preventable if people would stop abusing children, right? So I'm so thankful for everybody for tuning in. I really appreciate it. And young people under the age of 18, I just ask that you have permission to listen to my show. If I'm an adult, somebody who's older, an adult who can help you make a decision whether you should be listening to my shows, any of my shows. I'm talking all about abuse. Abuse is a very sensitive topic. And children have the right to protection, Anytime there's a chat room available or open, you really should know, and you should have an adult know what you're doing who can help protect you. And if you don't have the information, you need to get it. And the FBI has a great website on Internet safety for parents and Internet safety for children. And you just make sure that you get that information and learn how to keep yourself safe online, right? Because there are thousands and thousands, if tens of thousands of child sexual predators online at any time trying to get a hold of children, and they will do anything to get a hold of you that they can. And so you need to know this. This is something that you need to be aware of. So keep yourself safe when you're online, and keep yourself safe when you're out running around with your friends or whatever you're doing. Get the information. It's no good to live in fear. It's much better to become educated and really work to save your life and prevent yourself from becoming a victim of a child sexual predator or a pedophile, right? Make sure you have the information. So this is this website here, www.safechild.org, Coalition for Children, Prevention of Sexual Abuse. I want to just read through here. It's not a very lengthy article, but it just has some good info on it especially for parents, who may be wondering like how to go about, training their children to be able to protect themselves, right? This is absolutely crucial. You don't want to teach your children, that no one to never let anyone touch them, in any way, because that's just sending a child a message that every single adult is a bad person and that every single person out there is going to sexually abuse them, which is not the case. There's a lot of good-hearted people out there who love children and would never, ever do anything to ever hurt them in their entire lives. You know what I mean? But there's a lot of sick people out there, too, and these are the ones that are in your own families. Now, get this, right? Now, everybody needs to pay attention to this, because 90 to 95% of child sexual abuse happens within the home, and that really goes for all abuse as far as that goes. It goes for physical abuse, verbal, emotional, psychological, neglect, and child sexual abuse. 90 to 95% of that's happening within the home. So, who's abusing these children sexually? Who's raping them, molesting them, sexually abusing them? Well, it's the parents, it's grandparents, it's the aunts and uncles, it's the cousins, it's the relatives, it's whoever, it's the siblings, it's whoever's in the home that has access and control of, or some time with your child. That's who's going to sexually abuse your child. So you better be aware that it could be, and chances are that it will be someone within the home. And 1 out of 3 girls and 1 out of 6 boys will be sexually abused in some way under the age of 18, whether that's, unwanted sexual touching, exploitation, molestation, rape, you name it. 1 in 3 girls, 1 in 6 boys, and 90 to 95% of that happens within the home. So it's very important to know that it's not just stranger danger. That's only about 5%, 5 to 10%, really. And, abuse is underreported. So, they know that there's probably more than the 1 out of 3 girls and 1 out of 6 boys being sexually abused. And it's just so important that everyone know, that this happens in people's homes, and this is where this is happening. And parents really need to get a grip and realize that, hey, it could happen in any home. A lot of people think, oh, this would never happen in my home. This would never happen on my street. This would never happen in my city or my town. Well, it does, and it is. And you better protect your children and teach them how to protect themselves as well. So I'm just going to read right from this page. Prevention of sexual abuse. This is the Safe Child Program, focuses on prevention of sexual abuse in preschool, kindergarten, grade 1 and grade 3. The training begins with children's natural abilities, what they already know, and the experiences they've already had. The fundamental messages in prevention of child abuse by people known to the child include your body belongs to you. This is the fundamental messages in prevention of child abuse by people known to the child, which includes your body belongs to you. You have a right to say who touches you and how. If someone touches you in a way you don't like, in a way that makes you feel funny or uncomfortable inside, or in a way that you think is wrong, or your parents would think is wrong, it's okay to say no, right? So many times parents tell their kids, you will do everything that so-and-so says, whether it's a teacher or a family member or a babysitter or somebody the child is going to be looking after that child, or the child's going to be in their care for a bit. The parents are always notoriously saying to their children, you do exactly what they tell you, and you listen to them, and when they tell you to do something, you do it, and you don't dare say no. See, and the parents give the kids the wrong message that they don't have the ability to say no. And so when somebody, a child sexual predator or pedophile or some sick, crazy person decides that they're going to start molesting them, they just tell the child, well, your parents said that you have to do everything I told you to do. And so, and the kids, of course, they just believe that because they're like, well, I guess so. My parents told me I had to do everything that this person said, and my parents are, they told me never to say no, and so they wouldn't even think to say no, in that case, right? So, and the abusers know this. These child sexual predators and molesters and pedophiles and whatnot, they're very smart. They're manipulative, and they know how to get a hold of a child, and they know how to groom them. They know how to manipulate them as well. It says if the person doesn't stop, say, quote unquote, I'm going to tell, and then tell no matter what. You're supposed to, this is just it. So many times children are told that if they tell, that they'll be killed, or that their family will be killed, or that their pet will be killed, their friends, you know what I mean? The abuser will say, if you tell anyone about what has happened here, I'll kill your family, or I'll kill the pets, or I'll kill you, or they'll threaten them with something, right? They'll threaten them to make them stay silent. And so, children should know that they can say, I'm going to tell, and then tell, no matter what it is. And you should tell your children, as parents, you should tell your child that they could come to you and tell you anything at all, because they would not be in trouble, and that you would work through it with them. You know what I mean? That there could be consequences if it was something that they were doing that was wrong, but yet they need to be able to know that they can come to you and tell you everything. You know what I mean? Because you do want to listen to your child if your child comes to you and discloses that they've been abused. It's just so important, because so many times parents, or one parent, or whoever the child actually has, finds the courage to tell that someone's been touching them or doing something to them, that makes them uncomfortable, so, sexually touching them and using them in some way, or maybe showing them videos or, pornographic videos or whatever. The child if they come to the parent, quite often the parent just doesn't believe it and says, "Oh no, you're just making that up," or that person wouldn't do that, because you're talking about Uncle Joe or Aunt Jane, right? Or maybe even siblings, right? And these people, the parents are like, "Oh, they would never do that." What are you saying? Shame on you, and make it look like the child's just crazy, and then just tell the child, just dismiss it, right? Well, you better believe, because they've done the studies and they know for a fact that children do not. It's a very small percentage of children that would lie about something like that. Most children are telling the truth when they're talking about child sexual abuse. Reasons being is they've done the studies on it, and they did take a look into it, and they found that the children were describing things that they would have never had any concept of, that were being done to them. They've done enough studies now on child sexual abuse, because people are coming forward, thank God. That the people are like, well, okay, how would a child this age know about this unless they've either experienced it or they've seen it? And that's why it's very important to know what your child's watching on the TV. Do not allow your child to watch pornographic videos. Don't let your children watch some of these adult TV shows. Don't even let your kids watch some of these children's shows that are full of all kinds of sexuality and child sexuality, which is just disgusting and degrading and horrible, and should never be allowed, because people think it's cute that a child looks sexy. And children are not sex toys. They are not adults, and they should be allowed to be children and innocent until they, grow up and find their own sexuality, right? It's absolutely ridiculous that people think that children should be all involved in sex too. There's parents out there having sex with their children. You better believe this is true. Husbands and wives who will do sexual things with their children and videotape it. And then trade it, and put it on, those pornographic sites, whatever they do. Sick people, but they do, and they get busted. Thank God they get busted. It's so wonderful. I get so happy, and I throw a party every time those people get busted. It makes me happy, because every single child sexual predator or person who abuses a child in any way makes me so happy when they get busted. I'm like, yes. Good. They need it. They need to be busted. This is incredibly wrong, and it will always be wrong, and I don't care. There's a lot of people out there that think it's okay to sexually use a child, but you know what? They're sick. There's something wrong with them, and we as a society, if we don't stand up and we don't say, that is wrong, and it will always be wrong, then there's something wrong with us. You know what I mean? No, there's something wrong with that, and I'm a survivor of childhood sexual abuse, so I know. And I went to my mom and I told her, because I was in pain. And I told my mom that someone in the family was doing something to me and it was causing me pain, and I told her where. And she said, that's your own problem. You deal with it, and you wrap yourself up in a blanket or something and you deal with it. It is not my problem. And she walked off. And that was the end of that. But my parents were, if you listen to my other shows, then you would know that, my parents were my main abusers. And so, obviously I wasn't going to get any help there. But the whole issue is that you better wake up and smell the coffee. If your child comes to you and tells you something like that, then you better do something about it, because children don't lie about stuff like that. They just don't know anything about that stuff unless it's happening to them, right? So, you better make sure that you get your child some help. And if you know of a child who's being abused and you do nothing about it, it's against the law. And you really, if they found out, you could be brought up on charges for not disclosing, not getting that child some help. You could be brought up as an accomplice to it. And if you don't do it, it's just shame on you, because if knowing that a child's being abused, you should want to get them some help, because it's so sick and sad and wrong. I knew kids growing up, which I won't mention their names, whose fathers were raping them. This makes me sick. I knew people whose grandparents were molesting them. I grew up with people who were abused in every way. I grew up with a whole lot of kids who were abused, and we used to talk about it. They knew I was abused, and we would talk about a lot about it. And I knew so many kids growing up all the way through high school, and then after had known so many people who were sexually abused. Do not let anyone in your family be a victim of child sexual abuse. You make sure that you know the signs and symptoms, that you listen to your children, listen to what they're telling you, and you get them some help, because you're just as guilty if you don't. You're just as guilty as the one who's doing it. And also, kids need to know that if they're asked to keep a secret, say, no, I'm going to tell. Because kids, quite often these sexual abusers will get the kids to say, that it's their little secret, their little game. They're asked to keep a secret. And I think, parents should tell their kids that that they need to come to you with any secrets that they may have, that they're allowed to tell you. It's no problem, and that they should tell the other person, no, I'm going to tell. And also, if you have a problem, keep talking about it until someone helps you. So children, it says, learn that they can have some control over what happens to their bodies when we teach them, and when we show them through our own behavior that their bodies do indeed belong to them. And children as young as 2 and 3 already know what touching they like and what touch they don't like. Touching they don't like makes them feel uneasy and seems wrong to them. This approach to prevention gives them permission to speak up. It teaches them how to speak up effectively and in a way that is appropriate. So it says these prevention of child abuse techniques must be learned not just as ideas but as real skills, and this means practice. So as part of effective prevention education includes role play. So giving children an opportunity to see how it feels to say no in a difficult situation. Parents can do this, some of this, but the essence of the classroom programs is actually giving children an opportunity to practice these skills so they can really use them if they should need to. And just as children don't learn to ride a bicycle by talking or reading about bicycling, children don't learn to prevent child abuse without opportunities to work with the techniques, to practice and feel comfortable with the skills. And it says children who have been given a chance to practice skills in class were indeed more likely to say they had used the skills in real life, to have said no to an adult, to have told someone, and to have helped a friend. That's from David Finkelor and Jennifer D'Zuba Leatherman. Victimization Prevention Programs, a National Survey of Children's Exposure and Reactions, Family Research Laboratory, University of New Hampshire, 1993. So the behavior and comments of perpetrators suggest that prevention programs are indeed having a positive impact. Sexual abuse offenders interviewed by various researchers report that they are deterred by a child who indicates that he or she would tell a specific adult about the assault. And that was from the National Committee for the Prevention of Child Abuse Memorandum. And for more information on the Safe Child program, there's more information here about the whole program. But there's videos and all kinds of stuff on here. I hope the parents will check this out and see if it's, there's other programs too. There's, out of Canada, there's out of Edmonton, Alberta, there's Little Warriors, and that's another child sexual abuse prevention group, and they're a not-for-profit organization up here in Canada. Little Warriors, they're doing a great job to get the word out about child sexual abuse and how to prevent it. There's all kinds of cool programs. This is just one, this Safe Child, right? But there's so many. Make sure, parents, that you get the information, right? Because this is so important. Because no child, should ever be abused. And especially, I can't believe that people, a lot of times cross the line with physical abuse, right? And they think they're disciplining the child and end up physically abusing them. But this child sexual abuse stuff, this just makes me sick. Because children are not sex toys, right? They never have been. They never will be. Children were not put on the planet to sexually be used by anyone. And I just think it's ridiculous that people think they have the right to do this. And there's a lot of people out there who would love to see it. There's people out there signing petitions in Washington, D.C. right now. Over this last year. They're trying to get the government to allow adult child sex, right? So that adults can have child sexual relations with children. And at one point there was like 200,000 signatures on this thing. There's a lot of sick, really sick people out there. And sick is the only word I can think of to say it, because anybody who would sexually use a child, there has to be something wrong with them. An adult person, whether it's a male or female, I don't care whether it's a male or female, any person who's an adult who knows, that, hey, they should be having sexual relations with other people their own age or somewhat similar in age or maybe a little bit older even, but not a child. You know what I mean? There's laws against it. It's against the law, thank God. And not only that, but it's morally wrong. And it's wrong in every way. People are raping their 2-month-old babies and killing them. People are, molesting little kids, little tiny children, and sexually using children. This makes me sick. And generally it's a parent. It's usually a parent, but sometimes it's some sort of a stranger, but it's almost always a parent. And it just makes me sick that somebody thinks that they can rape a 2-month-old baby or even a 2-year-old baby. What's the matter with these sick people? See, in other countries, they would just chop off their you-know-whats. They would just be, they would solve the problem right there, but they have to chop their arms off too. You know what I mean? Because people are sick, and for some reason, they think that they should be allowed to sexually use a child in any way. I don't care what way it is. It's so incredibly wrong. It will never be right, and I don't care. I don't mind saying it. I don't really care who likes it or not. I know there'd be a lot of people that don't like me speaking out against abuse, right? Because there's a lot of people out there who like to abuse children and they think it's great, right? So why is everybody not standing up and getting pissed off about this? I mean, it makes me angry that there's whole sectors of society that really don't care. But had they been sodomized as a child, they might be thinking differently about it, right? Because it hurts, let me tell you. You do not want to be, your child to be a victim of sexual abuse. It's not funny. And I'm just laughing because I can't believe how sick our society is that they think that there's nothing wrong with it unless it happens to them. And then they're screaming out, oh, look what this person did to me. Well, what about these kids out here, and why are people not screaming out and saying that this is wrong? It's so incredibly wrong. And I have my own family refuses to stand up and say it's wrong, even though they were abused as children. And, we all grew up in the same home. So many people will not stand up. They will not gain the courage and the strength, I guess, to have the guts to stand up and say this is wrong, it's got to stop. And I'm talking about all forms of abuse. I don't care whether it's physical, verbal, emotional, psychological, sexual, or neglect, because I experienced it all. And the thing is that no child should ever experience any of it. Parents are bound to make a mistake and hurt their child, and they can make amends and then not hurt them again, and learn how to properly discipline and properly help their children, right? Because the children definitely need direction, but they don't need abuse, And there's a whole sector of society, most of society actually, there's only a handful of us willing to stand up and say this is wrong. And the rest of them all want to just be allowed to just beat on their kids, rape their children, burn their kids, call their kids names and slap them around, throw their kids out of the house, have their kids, involved in criminal activity with them, any number of stupid, horrible things that parents do to children. It's incredibly wrong, And I just think too many people are having kids without realizing the work involved and the necessary, commitment that it takes to raise a child, which is that you must have time for them and you must be able to protect them and care about them, just pop out a bunch of kids and then just mistreat them and use them and kill them and abuse them just because you can't handle it. Parents, there's other ways to cope. You do not have to hurt your children, and there's other ways to cope. You can definitely get help with that. You don't have to lash out and hurt your children, and emotionally and verbally and psychologically damage your children. You don't have to physically abuse them. You don't have to hurt them. Now, if your child is out of control, you may have to get them some help. But if you've done nothing but screw with their heads for their whole lives, they are going to have problems, and they will be out of control. So, parents, you need to start early. Like, if you're listening to this, you better get some help, because there is help out there. There's no excuse for people anymore. There never was any excuse, because people out of the goodness of their own heart should not want to see a child suffer and should not make their children suffer just because of their own ignorances, right? But the thing is that now with all the information out there, it's a choice, and people are choosing to abuse their children because there's no reason for it. If you don't want your child and you're just going to hurt your child, you're going to kill your child or rape your child or beat your child, take your child into the proper authorities and just give them up for adoption and say, look, I can't look after this child. I'm going to hurt this child, and I don't want this child. This child has to go. But don't kill your child and throw it out in the dump somewhere or dump it in a river or whatever your sick, sad, sorry people are doing, or abuse your child and kill it. There are other alternatives, and you don't even have to lash out and beat on your kids if you bring them up properly in the first place, right? So, do the right thing and parents get some help with your parenting problems. And then get your children some help, and make sure that you're not abusing your children. And make sure that if you're not an abuser parent, which I know there's some great parents out there, some awesome parents that I wish I would have had, right? who care about their kids and love their children, right, and would never hurt them on purpose. And I know there's some good parents out there, and thank God for you all. And I wish I would have had you as parents. I tell you that. But if you're one of them good parents, you make sure that other kids around you and that are not being abused, right? Because you're the eyes and ears for those kids, right? So we have to be the eyes and ears for kids and make sure that they're not being abused, and we have to do the right thing and make the phone call and get them some help if they are. So if you know of a child who's being abused, do the right thing and make the call. Check out Dreamcatchers for Abused Children website at http://www.dreamcatchersforabusedchildren.com. We have all kinds of great information on there, resources, references, links, you name it. Great information. It's updated daily. You should check that website out. Sandra Potter does an amazing job on that website. She does the work on it as far as the updating goes, and she's in there all the time, adding to it and just busy in there. It's pretty much the most updated website I've ever seen. Be sure and take a look. Have a great night, everybody. I'll be back on tomorrow morning, One Child Abuse Survivor to Another. And have a good night, and keep reaching out and keep looking for that help where you can find it. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.